Hello and welcome to the podcast, Love, Life and Loss. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this today, Trish. I'm so excited to hear your story today. So if you'd like to introduce yourselves and everybody know who you are.
Okay, I'm Trish Balusa. I am many things actually. I'm a Big Brother star. I'm a social activist. I'm a feminist. I am a mom. I'm a Sen mom. I'm a human rights activist, and overall, I'm amazing, as I said before.
I was literally going to say that. Oh no, thank you so much. So me and Trish, we met at a conference, didn't we? Black Maternal Mental Health.
That's another thing. I'm a speaker. I'm a
Yes,
speaker. I am
yes.
a teacher. I'm quite a lot of things here.
Yes, definitely. And you did a great speech, really. You did. And like I said to you on the day, that it was so empowering because you told your truth, but you did it in a way that made us laugh and, still felt like human beings in a sense. So rather than just
Yeah.
being sad and morbid. So yeah, you did amazing. So,
Oh,
and yeah,
thank you so much.
and off the back of that, I'm so glad that you've agreed to come on the podcast to tell your story. So what we do here is, as I've explained to you before, I ask you to tell your story from the beginning, wherever that is for you, and what that looks like for you. So do you want to start with your beginning?
Okay. Oh, so at least you just start and tell my story.
Yeah, literally
Okay.
just get straight into it if that's okay.
Oh no, that's fine. Okay, so just to clarify, we're talking about loss here, child loss, and so I'm talking about my experience in regards to that. So around 2017 January, late January, I had suffered a late miscarriage where I'd lost twins. I was 20 weeks or almost 20 weeks pregnant. And the cause of that at the time, I was told it was incompetent cervix, which is something that happens when your cervix shortens quite early or, is quite weak early. And I was not educated on this matter at all before then. It's only during my pregnancy when I started to feel like my bump was heavy. And that's a weird thing to say now, thinking about it. And I remember when I did express that at the time, everyone was sort of like, it's all right. No, you're probably just exaggerating a little bit. Come on, you're strong. You can take it off. You're not the first. Okay, strange pregnancy. It doesn't mean, you're kind of seen as someone that's maybe like over exaggerating or just kind of like, being dramatic, I guess. And I felt a bit ashamed that I was being dramatic or not handling what seems to be the norms for any other women that do twins pregnancy. So I kind of just carried on. And then one day I felt really exhausted at work, actually. I remember asking work if I could take that day off because I was so tired. And luckily, I thank God for the school I worked in. They were so understanding. It was like, yeah, sure, take this day off. And I remember the next day I woke up and there was like water on my bed. I, I would say I was leaking. I saw water and it wasn't a lot. It was very little. And I think at the time, because I wasn't really educated on miscarriages like that, I thought, okay, the good thing is it's not blood. Because I think in movies and films, when we usually see it, we see blood and then you panic. So I was like, okay, it's clear, so it's not that bad. And I remember calling the NHS and they was asking me a few questions and I'm explaining to them. And then the lady says to me, at one point, she asks me a question. I don't remember what question she asked me. And she was like, are you with anybody? I said, no. She was like, okay, I think you should get a taxi or get someone to accompany you to go to the hospital and get yourself checked out. And I was like, oh, okay. Then anyway, I took the taxi. I took the Uber to the hospital. And long story short, eventually I was checked. It didn't take too long, actually. I think they were quite fast with it. And then they wanted to check I don't know if I'll say check my cervix. Just check me inside. When you're pregnant, everybody just has access to your vagina, if we're honest.
Basically,
They're not
yeah.
like, sure, can we check? Yeah, why not? And I remember, I think a detrimental moment for me specifically, probably the first time I realized something was wrong is when the nurse, she kind of did the check that she had to do, and then she came back up and she was like, darling. And I remember her calling me darling and putting her hands over mine. And I specifically remember this moment because it was like, oh, is she about to tell me bad news? Because like healthcare professionals don't really get touchy like that. Do you know what I mean? Unless something's happening. She was like, what she said one of your water sacs has broken. I didn't understand that language. I'm like, what the hell does that even like? Okay, so what does this mean? And she was like, we're gonna have to keep you off your feet from now on. And then I just remember everything being a bit blurred, but I remember her wheeling in the chair. She's like, sit on this. We're going to have to bring you upstairs. We probably may have to keep you overnight. From then on, everything was a bit of a blur. And then at some point, I remember I had to lay on the bed, and then multiple doctors or a lot of people came into the room. And I remember there was a particular doctor at the front talking to me, and some information was just a bit like, because I was alone as well, just like, what the hell's going on? I just remember him saying 60% chance you may miscarry in 2 days' time or something like that. 40% chance of survival. I just remember numbers and just thinking, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And then there was like, I remember them saying that they're going to try a technique where they're going to put me a bit upside down in hopes that maybe the babies will move and then it will push them back up. Because what they wanted to do is they wanted to do surgery to stitch me up. But the problem was that one of the sac was kind of like, how do I explain it? One of the sac was kind of like in the cervix already. So it's almost like it's already coming out. And so they needed to go back up so that they can stitch the cervix. Otherwise, if they was to try to do surgery now, what they'll do, they'll actually burst it even more. And then there's no saving them at all. So it was like, yeah, we're going to keep you like this for a couple of hours and hopefully you go back in. But everything's just in the air. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I remember I was kind of upside down for maybe 1 or 2, 3 days. And then I started feeling, yeah, don't worry, I wasn't like that the entire time. I think they'll bring me down and whatnot. I'd even get visitors and stuff.
So was you bed bound then? So you couldn't
Absolutely. Yeah. Like,
okay.
The point was you can't be on your feet, because if you're sitting or standing straight, that's just more pressure. And that's what we don't need.
Yeah, gravity's not your friend at that moment.
Basically, yeah, the graphic was my enemy. Let's put it like that. And then I think a couple of days later, I started feeling like severe pains, and what felt like I don't know if I call it contraction. It felt like labor pains, because I've never felt pain like that before. I just remember it really hurting, and I called the nurses.
How old was you, Trish? Sorry, when this
I was 27. I was 27.
Was this your first pregnancy?
Yes. the first I kept. Yeah, so I was
judgment-free zone, just so you know.
Oh, to be honest, I don't really care. I'm pro-choice, so yeah, as a feminist, I'm like, listen, yeah. So, and then I was taken into another ward, and then they basically said that they ended up telling me that I had an infection. Is it sepsis? Yeah, sepsis infection. Yeah, I had caught sepsis, and they were like, they're gonna have to come out. Oh, because sorry, I forgot another detail. The whole point of keeping me like that, there was like, even if the sac doesn't go back in, as long as it doesn't come out further, and we can keep them until I think 24, 23 weeks or something, until they get to a place where they can survive outside without you. The point was to just kind of keep them for at least a couple more weeks, you know. But obviously, when I caught sepsis, there was like, this is, you know, we need to save you, basically. Like, you know, they're not going to survive. We're going to have to do this. And I remember one of my first questions was, can I have a C-section? And it was like, no, you can't. I just thought, that's not what I want. I don't want to do this. And yeah, I remember my friends came. My mum was there. Actually, I've always had like a really good support system, thinking back at it, because I remember the room was kind of full of my friends and family, and they were, even one of my best friends at the time was trying to plead, like, are you sure there's nothing we can do to save them? And I think at that time I just went into survival mode. I have this survival mode where I'll say my attachment style is quite disorganized. I'm a fearful avoidant, so I have time I tap into that the avoidance part to cope and survive something. And I think that's something I've developed since Congo. So I just went into, okay, this is what we have to do. This is what's going to have to happen. We'll do the mourning and the crying part and everything else later. And yeah, so eventually, before I knew it, I was pushing out babies who wouldn't survive. And yeah, and I remember when I pushed out the first, it was it a boy? Yeah, it was a boy. And then there was like, do you want to hold him? I was like, no, because I knew that if I stop, I'm not gonna push anymore. Like, if I come out of that coping mechanism, I'm not gonna do this. Do you know what I mean? And then I'm probably gonna die. And so and then after, when I pushed out the girl, I called the boy Max and the girl Ava. And when I pushed out Ava, then I was like, yeah, I want to hold her. I held her, and it's so sad, but I really remember like the last shivering, that I could see her shiver, and just feeling like, I think it was such a weird feeling, because you're like, I knew this was going to happen, but is there nothing we can do? Do you know what I mean? Like you just,
Yeah.
and then at that point Max already passed. Yeah, and then my mum and the guy who would have been the dad, who was the dad, should I say, and his mum was there. Bless her, the mum was very, oh, she was an angel. She almost like she turned around to cry for a bit, and then I asked my mum to take pictures, and then yeah, and then afterwards, what happened? They said that the placenta wouldn't come out or something like that because I think they wanted me to push that, but at that point I was just kind of like,
Yeah, he was exhausted probably.
I'm exhausted. I don't even know what I was. It just felt like this thing isn't real. None of this is real.
Mm.
um, and then I think they had to take me to the theater, or I was waiting. At some point, I remember there was a little wait, and then I just started shaking a lot, and I couldn't stop shaking.
Okay.
And then I remember my mum's face, the other grandma, who would have been the other grandma, well, the other woman, the father's
Yeah.
mum, her face, and even him, the guy, they all look really mortified. So that's when I knew that I must be looking really bad because I just remember I couldn't stop shaking. I remember shaking like so intensely, and my mum was like, "Get help, get help!" And then I remember the doctors rushing in, and then I remember,
Was there no doctors in there with you then at the time?
you know what, they probably were, but because it's everything's such a blur to me.
Yeah.
I just remember looking at specific people's faces because I think at that time you look at the person you trust the most, don't you?
Yeah.
I'm looking at my mum to try and almost kind of like, you know, when a child hurts themselves and they look at their parents to see if it really happened,
Yeah.
like that.
Surprised?
Yeah, it's like, am I really hurt? So I'm looking at my mum to see like, am I okay? Like, why am I shaking? And then I look at my mother-in-law at the time, and she's looking mortified, and the guy is looking scared. And then I remember the doctors rushing in, and then I was taken out into the theater. I remember them saying that they're gonna have to take out the placenta through surgery or something like that. It was just all a blur. And then that happened, and then I think at that point I don't think I understood what sepsis was, but I think again I don't remember the details specifically, but I think I may have got into shock or something because when my mum and everyone was explaining to me, they said I went grey when I was shaking, and so my mum was like, "What the hell?" Like she was like she thought they were gonna lose me, and then yeah, and then the next day, I don't. What's it, the next day they kept the babies there. I was with them for like a day or a few hours at least until they kind of came and then spoke to me about what I want to do next. You know, like the options that are there again, which everything was a blur to be honest. And yeah, and regrettably, I chose to ask them to cremate them. I wish I had done the funeral myself. I think because I was so traumatized, I didn't want to have to deal with anything else. You know, I was like, I no, you guys can deal with this and like just let me be. I just yeah, I it was probably like such a silent loudness in my head. I think
Mm.
the best way I could explain it. It was so silent but yet so loud.
Trauma.
Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And then I remember coming out, I think I went in on the 27th or 25th of January. No, 27th of January. And I think I came out, no, I think I went in on 24th actually, because I was there for a couple of days before the miscarriage. I remember coming out to the hospital on the 2nd of February. And I never forget that date. I'll tell you another reason why it's such an important date. But yeah, I'll never forget that date. I came out and it was just weird because it was like, oh, I walked in here. Like when I walked into hospital, I think this is when it hurt me the most. And so I get teary about this. Because I was like, when I walked into hospital, there was three of us technically, even though I was alone. Because there was me and my two babies. And I'm walking out by myself. It's like, what the hell? It just didn't make any sense to me. Do you know what I mean? And then I think that's probably when the grief started, when I was back alone. That's when I was like, that's when it just started being a bit weird because then I started to realize there's certain things that I had subconsciously gotten used to without knowing, like feeling them move. Because that started pretty early. I think that started at like 10 weeks, 11 weeks. And I was told that that's because there's twins, you can feel things more. And I always used to feel like it was like feeling like little rats in your stomach. And then just a feeling of that. I was like, oh my gosh, that's not happening anymore. Oh my God, what's happening? Like, I don't know. It was just to think, where am I gonna go from here? Like it was, and then obviously then kicked in the, oh, my body's failed me as a woman. What's happening? I'm in my late 20s and I'm having fertility problems. What's it going to be like if I wait longer? Maybe I need to try have another child. I need to try ASAP. I need to try again. I probably will get twins. Like, and it's like, yeah, I got to get twins. How do I get twins? I started looking up. I went crazy. Like, I lost my mind. I lost my mind. I could genuinely say I friggin' lost my mind. and it felt like nobody understood.
Yeah. I know that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's that when reality kicks in, isn't it? And then I mean, I remember bending down to put my socks on and being able to bend down. Like,
Yeah.
that was like bizarre. Like, what's going on? Why have I not got a belly in the way, sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's those little things, isn't it? And not having with you to compensate for it. I used to feel embarrassed going out for walks because I had this postpartum body, but no baby, and nobody who didn't know me wouldn't know that sort of thing. And yeah, I know what you mean. It's not a nice feeling.
You know how you say you're embarrassed? You're embarrassed because you had a postpartum body but no baby. I think for me it was actually the opposite because my belly went really flat. But to be fair, I wasn't far down the pregnancy, but still I already had a bump and my belly went flat, like it just bounced back. And then I was so annoyed. And I was like, it's almost like if I didn't experience this, like I've just imagined it. It's like, how does life just move on? You know? And then I was annoyed because I know people get to show off, be like, oh, snap back. But I was like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
It was very odd. And also another thing that I remember that it felt like what do you call it, insult to injury, or like just salt on top of a wound is when the first night I came back, I was staying at my mum's and then my breast started leaking, milk started leaking. I was like, and that's the first time it's happened. That's the first time I've ever experienced something like that. So I was like, should I go to my mum? Should I tell her? And I just remember I went to my mum and I told her, and I just saw the look in her face. It was a sort look of grief as well, and the helplessness. Like, how can I help my daughter go through this? And sometimes when you see other people's sadness, you realize just how sad it is. Yeah. And yeah, that was a moment that kind of it really hurts when I think back at it. It was just kind of like, what do I do with this?
And the hospital could have made that a lot easier for you because they could have given you some tablets so that didn't happen.
I didn't even know that's a thing.
Yeah, this is the thing. There's so many things that some do, some don't. There's so many things that people don't know about. And you're never going to know unless you experience that. And hopefully you never do experience it.
Yeah.
Even listening to you, your babies, were they born breathing?
It looked like it to me.
Yeah, so technically then your babies, they're not classed as a miscarriage. If your baby's born breathing, even if it takes one breath, it's not classed as a miscarriage, it's classed as a neonatal death.
I just knew as a miscarriage. I mean,
yeah.
At this point to me, the technical term doesn't even matter because whatever it was the most heartbreaking thing I'd experienced back then. Do you know what I mean? It could be called whatever. It just should never happen.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of the term miscarriage. I prefer
baby
loss because
baby loss. Oh yeah. I guess I don't really mind as much. Like it's just it was intense.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, that's heartbreaking. And you lost two babies. So how did you? So you said you was broken, and I completely get it because I've been there. But looking at you now, you don't look like a broken woman. So how did you go from there to here?
I've lived a long life and I've experienced a lot of trauma even as a child. And like I said, I think in a way, even though it's bad, I think that the avoidant part of me sometimes goes into delusions of, you know what, if I overcame that, I'm gonna overcome this. But also I did actually get actual help. I was luckily at the time I was receiving CBT anyway because of the pregnancy was very stressful. I'm not gonna lie, it's very, very stressful. The guy was really an asshole to me. Like he switched up on me. Sometimes I do blame myself for even allowing myself to be stressed over a man. I feel like I caused it to myself. Like I know that I didn't, the rational part of me is like, you couldn't have, you didn't. But I was so stressed and experiencing really bad anxiety that I was receiving CBT for it anyway. So when they passed, then we changed the goal for the CBT. Because obviously I had to tell my therapist, oh, I'm in hospital, I can't attend this week, this is what's happening. And she would just like keep me updated. And then when I came out, I was like, the past. And she was like, okay, let's just change the goal. So we that kind of carried on. And it was a great help to me getting therapy at the time. Just I got to release all my thoughts, because I had a lot of thoughts going on. Like, is it my fault? Because one minute I'm here complaining that I'm going to be a single mom, I'm going to do this alone, I'm so scared, blah, blah, blah. This guy switched up on me. What's life going to be like? And then the next minute, like, oh my gosh, they're gone. This is my fault because I was so ungrateful. So it was like from one side to the other side,
Yeah.
And yeah, and also, again, I have to say, my village, my friends, family, there was not a day someone did not call my phone to see how I was doing, to make sure I'd eaten, just to see how I am, to come and see me, to make me laugh, and reminded me that it was one day at a time. And also work was really supportive, because I think when my therapist said, like, the average grieving time is 6 weeks, work was like, we'll give you 6 weeks off, we'll get paid, just you take the time and do what's best. And I had work colleagues come and visit me as well. So it was that support, that community support was so good for me. And I think also it was good for my confidence, because people weren't only giving me support, but they were telling me that they're supporting me because this is what I do for them. Like, it was almost like, this is what you do for us, this is who you are to me, this is what you will do for me. Because I think an aspect of me losing the babies was like, did I deserve bad things to happen to me? You almost demonize yourself. Maybe if I punish myself, it would make sense as to why it happened. So then you start thinking, maybe I'm not a nice person, maybe I deserve this to happen. So then, as you're thinking this in your head, to have people kind of counteract that, not knowing that they're counteracting weird thoughts, it was really helpful for someone to be like, oh, have you eaten today? I'm like, oh, you're so kind. Oh, don't be silly, Trish. You'll do a lot more for me. And then you're like, oh, maybe I am a good person. Yeah, I didn't deserve for that to happen. Maybe what has happened is for the greater good. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe I'll come out of this. If I deserve goodness, then surely there's going to be this positive in the future, even if I don't see it now. Do you know what I mean? So, like, acts of kindness helped me a lot.
Okay. And that's amazing that you could even see that all the way back then, that there will be positive things in the future. Not that you weren't feeling it at the time, but that was amazing that you was able to see that. Because I mean, I just listened to what you said, that the therapist said 6 weeks is the average grieving time, not for baby loss, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I mean, she wasn't saying, sorry, maybe I should elaborate. She wasn't saying that after 6 weeks you're okay.
Yeah.
But she was talking about like the sorry, it's actually the beginning of grief is what she was saying. She was talking about like the shock and stuff, like the first few intense stages, because obviously I was like, how long am I going to feel like this? When does it calm down? And I think she broke it down better, but obviously at the time, I mean, I can't even repeat exactly what she said, but she actually explained to me the stages I was going through, the anger, the doubt and whatnot. She broke it down, but she did make it clear that this is a lifetime thing, it's a lifetime journey. But for me, in terms of like how I feel now, like, when do I kind of like come back to earth a little bit? And then she was like, okay, the first few 6 weeks are the most intense, is what I would say she said. And then so when I explained that to work, they said, we'll give you 6 weeks paid leave, and then come back, we'll see how you cope with that. So it was practically that.
Okay, I know what you mean. I call that the zombie stage. I was like a zombie at that time.
Yeah.
There, but I wasn't there.
Yeah, basically.
And how was work? Did you go back to work after 6
I went back to work. Oh, it was it was so good, because again, work was, I needed to work. I actually needed it. It was really, really good. And I was close to a lot of people there. I was working in a school, I don't know if I mentioned, and I was working with children with learning difficulties. I was doing one-to-one. But however, it was a mainstream school. So the class teacher that I was working with, she gave me a really nice welcome. She said, at any point, if you need to pop out, any point, if you feel emotional, just go. Like, we'll take care of the kid that I was doing one-to-one with. The school nurse told me, just pop in anytime, we'll talk. And so I used to like pop in and go and talk. And the head teacher, everybody was like looking out for me. even moms who knew about my pregnancy were very like very. I guess you kind of sometimes when I'm having a good day, it will be annoying because I'm having a good day and then someone comes to show me their sadness, and I'm like, oh, I feel sad again because it may be that I haven't seen that person since I've been back. But it's the first time they see me, and so they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And then it takes me from the "Oh, I was having a good day" to "Oh yeah, that did happen." That would be quite conflicting. And also, oh, what was really interesting is because at the time I was working with Year 5, and they were going through the sex education basically, and again the whole class knew that I was pregnant and I was having twins. Everyone was very excited and coming back. Obviously, they've been told and whatnot. And I remember one time in sex education, there was then a mention of pregnancy. And it was so triggering because then kids are kids, isn't it? They got really curious. They started asking the teacher questions. Obviously, as I'm sitting there with the child I look after, they started asking questions about, okay, but how do twins happen? You could tell we were all traumatized by my experience. Even they were. I think that was the first time I realized that, oh, this is our grief, because they were also expecting like Miss Balusa to have twins, and she's gone away for like 5 weeks and to come back and there's no twins. Like, and also they probably don't know how to approach you and how to ask questions. So this is probably the opportunity for them. So then they start asking like, okay, how are twins made? And I think it was, and the teacher was answering. I think it was one girl that asked, oh, are we going to talk about how maybe people lose babies as well? She was like, not today. In fact, let's move on from this. And that's when she kind of like shut it down. But it was seeing different students even looking at me as they wanted to ask questions, but they couldn't quite ask me, and but they were curious. Do you know what I mean? It was realizing that, and after that, after the whole class, the child I was working with, Down syndrome, bless her, she was like, 1,000 apologies for your babies, 1,000 apologies, and it was just the sweetest thing. But I went home and cried a lot. I was like,
I feel like I'm going to cry now listening to you.
yeah, she was so sweet. She just sometimes she'll just be like, oh, Balusa sad, oh, sorry, lost babies, 1,000 apologies, 1,000 apologies. Oh, it's okay, it's okay. Like, oh, sorry, 1,000 apologies. I'm like, it was the sweetest thing, but it's like such bittersweet and like sour grapes moments. And so, and I guess every day there was a sour grape moment in its own way until it just got easier, I guess. And I was definitely baby obsessed. I was like, I've got to have a baby, because if I don't have a baby now, my first, in a way, in a patriarchy mindset, biological thing, I'm thinking my biological time is ticking. I'm gonna get when I get to I'm in my late 20s. So if I wait until I get to my 30s and my body's even worse, what if I just have miscarriages? I don't have a baby. I need to have one now.
So what did you do with that then? How did you move on with that? I mean, I fell pregnant within months after losing because I was very much the same.
I got pregnant that same year with Sankara.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm listening to your story. So similar, so many aspects. I did the same, and I completely agree. Where I can understand 100%, because I remember having the same conversation with my husband. Like at first, when I came out of the hospital, I was like, nope, never doing this ever again. Like I can't bear it. And then within a couple of days, I was like, I can't bear not doing it. Like I can't let go of the future plans. It's not just a baby you lose, is it? It's your future plans and hopes and dreams.
Yeah. There's a part of you that you lose. Yeah, I was definitely baby crazy. I'll go on dates and be like, so are you ready to be a dad?
So how was your following pregnancy? How was your rainbow pregnancy then?
You know what? I was very anxious, not surprisingly. I was very, very anxious because also after that, I joined groups of like incompetent cervix, just see more on it. I think that's where I would say the healthcare system probably failed me, because I didn't really get any sort of education or any sort of like follow up after. I think the only thing they kind of said to me was you have to have 3 losses before you start to get checked up. Or something, which was at the time I was like, oh, whatever, like, but then obviously when I got pregnant with Sankara, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely getting checked up. Like, you guys, they have to do constant cervix check. They did try to say, oh, let's see how it goes. I said, no, I'm gonna get checked. Like, I did not play around when it came to that. And then I was getting constant checkups. I think I got one at 12 weeks. I got one at 16 weeks, and then at 20 weeks, that's when they told me that my cervix started shortening again.
Okay. That must
You
have been
can
scary.
you can only imagine. I called my mom crying.
I can imagine, because funny enough, it happened to me too in my rainbow baby. I was 24 weeks when it happened, yeah.
I called my mom crying. I was like, it's gonna happen again. And she was like, she was calming me now. She's like, calm down. They found it early, it's a good thing you're getting checked up. And I think I remember they gave me two options. They said, okay, either we can keep an eye on it or you can decide to have surgery. I said, let's do the surgery straight away. I'm not trying to risk anything at all. So I got my cervix stitched up whilst I was pregnant. And that was quite scary as well because they did tell you the risks of them stitching it up means they might burst something. And then she just think, if this goes wrong, then I killed my baby. you know. So it's like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
hard, isn't it? At the time, I don't know about you, I kind of felt I didn't really have an option. I had to have the stitch put in.
that's why I still went with it because but it just felt like if it goes wrong, then I've done this because that's what grief does. It makes you blame yourself to have some sense of control, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm already guilt driven with baby loss here. Do you know what I mean? And and with that one, it felt like I couldn't control that. But this is the decision I make, and if this goes wrong, I get to look at it as it was my decision. Do you know what I mean? So that caused me a lot of anxiety. I was really anxious. Yeah, but then luckily everything went good, and then I went straight to bed rest. Just a bed rest. Yeah.
From 20 weeks.
Yeah. No, was it? Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. It still seems a bit like a blur. I'm sure I went into bed rest straight away. Yeah, I went into bed rest because I remember. Yeah. It seems like a blur because there's a part of me that remembers going to work, but I feel like I went to work to kind of tell them what had happened and what needs to happen. And even work was like, take the
Yeah.
bed rest. Like everyone, I felt like everybody had their secondhand trauma.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they've gone through that journey with you. They've experienced parts of it, haven't they?
That's it. Yeah. So yeah, I was in bed rest for a while until I had to get the stitch taken out.
It's normally about 36, 34 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I got out like, yeah, 36, 37 around those time. Yeah. Because they said there was a chance that if you get it taken out, you go straight to labor. And so I was like, okay, I want to leave it for as late as possible.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so that there's less complications because I was just very scared.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You just want to make sure your baby's healthy. And I always remember I had different, you have different goals, don't you, throughout the pregnancy. Mine was like get to 12 weeks, then it was get to 20,
Yes.
then it was get to 24 weeks, then it
Yes.
was get to 30 weeks because
Yes.
after I had the stitch put in, they were like, once your baby's 30 weeks, it's got everything that it needs, it just gets bigger.
Yeah.
So I was like, I just
Yeah.
need to get to 30 weeks. And when I got there, I was like, just need to get to 36.
I really remember the 30 weeks big goal because I remember that hearing that as well. I was like, if we get in 30 weeks, if we could just make it to the 30 weeks, we're good.
Yeah.
Good.
You feel kind of safe, don't you, once you get there, sort of thing. Like if
I
anything
remember
happens now, they've got a chance.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So how was your labour? When you had your stitch taken out, did you go into labour quite quickly afterwards?
No, I didn't actually. My
Okay.
labor was ironic. That's the best way I'll call it because they were telling me that my my cervix is not opening.
Oh wow.
I was thinking this would only happen to me.
I hope you laughed in that moment.
I no, I was literally laughing. Even my mom was laughing. She was like, "Oh, Zambi."
Yeah.
I was like, "What?" It was interesting because I was hoping that once they take out the stitch, I was going to labor and everything would be done. But no, instead, what I started doing, I started walking to help myself go into labor. I was thinking, this is so ironic. I can't believe I'm going through all of this to get my cervix open. I didn't think it would do it by itself. I didn't think it would even stay closed by itself. But now I'm trying to get it to open up. Yeah. So when I went into labor, I think the first time I got really intense labor pain. We went in. They were like, "Well, you're not. I don't remember the actual terms, but you're not dilated." There's like, "You're not dilated," and so they sent me back home. You know what? I didn't even make it home. We were going. me and my partner at the time were walking out, and I remember feeling the pain. I just vomited. I was like, I'm not going home.
Oh wow.
We need to go back. So we went back into the hospital. Like, I don't feel comfortable going home. I'm scared. Blah blah blah. And then what did we go home? Wow, my memory's so bad. No, we did. I don't think we went home. No. Well, even if we went home, we went straight back after, and they kept me in, and they were just observing and checking. You know, like I say, vagina for everyone. People just come in there, have a look. Can I have a look? Yeah, sure. I don't even know who they are anymore. A stranger could have walked in and said, "Can I have a look?" I'd be like, "Yeah, sure." Because I'm not keeping like I'm not keeping count of who's who and what. Just look, do what you need to do. And then at some point they said that I was starting to dilate. I think he went up to 5 centimeters.
Okay.
And then he went back up.
Oh, it closed back up again after that. No way.
I said, "You're joking."
No, and you didn't know that pain.
I was in so much pain. And then it was only when what happened is that, oh yeah, then I started to develop sepsis. That's
What?
when, yeah, he ended up being a C-section baby. Yeah.
How did you not have, did you have an infection already then? They didn't notice?
You know what? I don't even know what happened, but I mean, I don't know how exactly it happened, but I just remember at some point they kept constantly doing tests, and then at this point when they did the test, they said, "Yeah, you're starting to show signs of sepsis, and we need to take the baby out before you transfer it to the baby." And that's when they was like, you know, kind of asking me for my consent to do C-section. I was like, "Let's do it," because I don't want to risk anything, and also I want to be medicated properly and whatnot. So yeah, so then we went into the operating room, and the doctor was so lovely. I still remember her face. I always say if I see her, I'll recognize her, because I remember her asking me, like, "Do you like music?" I was like, "I love music." She's like, "What do you like?" So I like Afrobeats. She was like, "Okay, show me she gave me her phone, and at least she put the songs. And then I remember he was actually born to a song called Angela by Eugene Kwame, Ghanaian artist. That song always plays because my friend's name's Angela, so I got to laugh about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember being so tired that I wanted to sleep, but I said, "I'm not going to sleep until I see my baby. I see that he's good, then I can sleep." And then I remember his dad holding him and showing him to me, and I think he asked me if I wanted to hold him, and I was like, I can't, but I'm so happy as well. And then I just everything went black.
Went to sleep.
Now I can rest. Yeah.
Oh, bless. And how old is he now?
He's 5. He's gonna be 6 next month, actually.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, my rainbow baby.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice. And I'm so pleased that you got to have your rainbow baby as well. And how did you find, my rainbow baby's 3, and I'm not gonna lie, there's moments where it's tough. It's tough. And you're conflicted. Every birthday I get upset because I think about his brother. Like, how do you navigate that?
You know what? Actually, I think it's a bit different for me because I'm just, you know me. I'm just gonna be forward, because being stuck with their dad, the twins' dad, would have been hell for me. I found comfort in the fact that they returned. I guess a way of me actually accepting my grief and thinking everything happened for the better was almost like, what if they were just like, "You know what, this situation is actually really messy. This is unstable. This is not what we want for her or for us." And that's how I found my comforting. It might be my positive delusions, but that's what I'm keeping.
No, yeah, I agree. And I think
and
that,
yeah, and he's not a good person. He's not someone that I would have liked to be stuck with in my life for the rest of my life. And so looking back, I'm like, what the fuck was I even doing trying to have kids with him? Like, do you know what I mean? And so that alone has comforted me through grief. So there were dates for a long time. It was hard. You know, I always would wonder, like, oh, I wonder if what they would have been like, you know. But in a way, I almost feel like if they lived, Sankara wouldn't be here, because
yeah.
Sankara is the result of them not living.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it almost feels like I still have that space for love. Do you know what I mean? I'll always have space for them in my heart, but it's also filled with Sankara, the love I have for Sankara. And I guess it's just been grateful that I wasn't stuck with that bastard.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in things like that, and it's in a way that they saved you, your babies.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess that's the part that probably made my journey a bit less guilt driven, because I was almost grateful for the aspect of it happening. I wouldn't have, if I could go back, it still wouldn't have happened. Not that way anyway. I just wouldn't have slept with the guy. But yeah, I found my comfort in like, oh, that would have been quite a life. I wouldn't have been able to give them the life that I would want them to have.
Yeah, yeah, and you probably wouldn't be the woman that you are now either.
Yeah, yeah. And Sankara wouldn't be here. So yeah, there were times where it's like, but I find that the body remembers. Like it's weird. I find that whenever it gets close to those dates, like the dates I went into hospital, the date I came out, date that was meant to be their birthday, my body, I start to experience anxiety, and I'm not sure. I'm like, why am I feeling like this? What's going on? And then I'll be, oh my gosh, yeah, the date's coming close. So sometimes I find that my body remembers before my mind.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah. I
that's
know.
strange.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. Like I will find that I get really tired and like burnt out certain times of the year. And then when I actually think about it and process it, I'm like, ah, okay, that's probably why, because it's around the anniversaries or whatever
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It is it's bizarre. It's trauma, isn't it? It's trauma.
It is trauma, yeah.
Yeah.
And also another thing, I guess Sankara was quite a difficult baby in terms of like looking back. I think his autism symptoms were showing up quite early, but at the time I just didn't understand it. And so I used to think, if I can't sleep with one child, what was I gonna do with two kids? Like, where would I? Yeah, it was because yeah, being a mom was quite intense for me. That I was just kind of like, you know what, one at a time. I think one at a time is the better idea. I think I've said before
I
I've
get
got
that
quite a dark
choice.
humor, so I used to find ways to be like, gosh, okay, maybe maybe I should maybe let's just stick to one at a time, because I don't know what I would have done with two. I would These times where some kind of trying, I join him, so I would definitely would have done that if I had two babies crying. It's a crying party.
I think as well, and and also just listening to you and the bits that you said. I mean, you sound like you've got to the point where you don't blame yourself and things, I hope.
Oh no.
Good. But if anybody who's listening, and I know there is times where we can't help ourselves, we do as being mothers, and all the responsibilities on the mothers.
Yeah.
But anyone that's listening, just remember that you make the best decisions that you can at the time with the knowledge that you have at the time.
Uh-huh.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing, and we can look back and remember and think, oh, well, we should have done this or should have done that. But if you
Yeah.
don't have knowledge at the time, you can't make that choice at the
Yeah.
time.
You can't choose an option you don't know about.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it sounds like you've done amazing though. And it wasn't obviously, it's not a nice, it's a nice story, but for what you've achieved since, and how I imagine your son feels so much love now as well, probably more than he would have done if you didn't have the losses before.
Absolutely. When he was born, like, I think it's Africa Day, yeah, the 25th of May, Africa Day, and I named him after a great African leader, Sankara. It's Thomas Sankara, who was Burkina Faso's revolutionary president and very feminist. Probably one of the few very pro women guys in African men in history that is like, well, recent history, because it was the 80s. And when I read about Thomas Sankara, I was like, oh my gosh, I want my son to be like this. So I knew I was going to name him Sankara. And it was just ironic that Sankara was born on Africa Day. And at the time when he was born, his godfather and my close Congolese friends, they were doing a Africa Day event. So when they got the news that Sankara was born, apparently they announced it to everyone.
Oh,
Yeah.
lovely.
One of his uncles was literally announced, he's like, I just want to say Trish is giving birth and it's called Sankara. What an Africa Day, what are the chances? So yeah, he Sankara received a lot of good welcoming, and even after he was born, we did a barbecue a week later, so people could just come and meet him, and the house was packed. Like the house was, my in-laws were like, how do you know so many people? Like, why do so many people care that you giving birth? I was like, oh, it's a long story. But it was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is the child that's made it. This is a rainbow
Yeah,
baby. It
yeah.
really had that feeling to it. And yeah, he was just so precious. He's so precious to a lot of people because of that. So, and my family are just so grateful for him. It's almost like, I guess that little bleep of the 20-week scan showing that the cervix was opening up again was such a big scare as well. That when him making it, it's kind of like, oh gosh, thank God, because we were really scared again. And so yeah, he's so loved. He's so loved. Yeah.
And it's so nice that you're pointing out how it affects other people, because not everyone could realize that, how it affects. Like when I had my son, my sister was with me. My husband couldn't come in, so my sister was there. And when I had my rainbow pregnancy, and the same thing happened, my cervix started to open, and she struggled more than I did, I think, during the pregnancy. She keeps on telling me still now, like, can you please not have any more babies? Because I can't cope. I can't cope with the pregnancy.
Honestly, with like when it comes to grief, sometimes I know us mothers, we go for it, but you don't know. I think other people, at least we're in control of our grief. I think other people is that helplessness. Like, what can I? There's nothing I can do. I'm just watching this person kind of go through this pain, and that creates a different type of anxiety as well. Do you know what I mean? Because they don't know what you're thinking, what you're going through. Like how do I help them? And then some people don't know what to say as well. Most people don't know what to say. They may say the wrong thing, and a lot of people do say the wrong things, and it really pisses you off. But they're just trying, and there's a lot of anxiety around that. And I think because I've suffered with anxiety for as long as I can remember, that made things more intense, because like, how do we help her in a way that doesn't trigger her anxiety and make things worse? So I really saw people come through for me.
Yeah, you can see it on their faces as well. Like they just feel so helpless. They don't know what to do. But it's nice that just showing up, isn't it? Just showing up. You don't have to do anything or say anything really. Just show up. I had people come to my house, and like I said, I call it the zombies stage. So I was there, but I wasn't there. I was present, but I wasn't present. You wasn't getting much out of me. I mean, I'd fall asleep when people were there. Because I couldn't sleep for the night. So I wake up, I'd fall asleep sometimes in the day when people would be there. And I'd often think, oh, I should probably talk to them, but I really don't want to.
Oh, I talked, and they'll just listen, and I'll just talk all my thoughts. I think because I was in therapy anyway, and I was getting a lot of guidance of how to therapeutically help myself and release the thoughts. I was yapping away. I feel sorry for them looking back.
Did you find that helpful?
Yes. I'm someone, when I go through something, I go back and assess, go back and reassess, and go back and reassess, and go back. And I need validation. I need my pain validated. It's a habit I'm trying to get out of. But because I get stuck in the strong Black woman thing, I need to feel validated that I'm not being weak, that I'm allowed to feel like this, that I should, do you know what I mean? That it's okay, that I'm not a bad person, that I didn't do this myself, that next time it's going to be okay. I need reassurance. I need a lot of that. Part of my personal healing for anything is I need reassurance, and I could only get that if I'm telling you what's in my mind. Do you know what I mean? Because I need you to reassure me, and people around me, which they were good at that. They were really good at that.
Oh, good. So you definitely did have a really good support network. Do you mind me asking, so when you met your new partner, did you tell him about your past? Was he aware of what you'd gone through?
I'm an oversharer, which again, something I need to stop doing. But I was telling guys on dates why I want a kid. Like I was, Louisa, when I tell you I lost my mind. I don't know why some of them did second dates with me. I wouldn't have come back.
I was thinking that when you said that. Like, well, at least you know you found a keeper.
But that's the point. They were all keen. Now I know that they were mad as well, because why are you here? I know why I'm mad, but why are you? I know I've lost my mind, but why are you here entertaining this? Like, because even before Sankara's dad, there was like one or two or three guys who were really nice to me about it. One guy in particular was like, he even sent me flowers to my house after that. He was like, I don't want to have a baby now, but I'll definitely see myself having a baby with you. Let's see how it goes. Like, it was so weird. Like, the world was kind to me, I have to say. Looking back, I'm realizing how much more I'm blessed, because I would just tell them, because I couldn't help but feel like I was carrying that sadness, and I didn't want to get judged for that sadness without having an explanation. And so when I feel like I've got this sadness and this date, and I'm gonna look weird if I don't say anything. Just be like, oh, by the way, I'm really sad because I had a miscarriage not long ago. Sorry, just to tell you much. And then like I just kind of throw it out there. But most guys would be like, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, are you okay? Like one guy, the one that sent me flowers, was like, he looked like he was gonna cry for me. He's like,
Oh.
yeah, my hand is like, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, I got a friend who went for something similar. I don't know what it feels like, but let me know if there's anything I can do. Like, is there anything particular you want to eat today? I was like, just get me the cocktails. So I definitely told Sankara's dad, like on the first date, I was like, this is the stage I'm at in my life. This is what I want. And he was like, yeah, I want a baby as well. I want to be a dad. I'm looking forward to it. He did want to be a dad. So I was like, tick. And I was like, why do you want to be a dad? Explain. And I watched them kind of explain, and I'll be thinking, okay, tick. Okay, cool. He's making sense. And he made a lot of sense. Here we are.
Good. It worked. Yeah, it worked out then.
Yeah. It did work out, yeah, because he's a wonderful dad, I have to say. Like, he's a really good dad.
Oh, great. That's lovely. And what about the in-laws? Did they know? Because when you said that when you had the party, they were like, why are so many people here? Did they understand?
You know what? Yeah, I don't know if he told them. I feel like they probably may have known. I did end up telling them anyway when I got closer to them.
Okay.
I was like, I definitely told them. Yeah, I told them. I explained why, because me and Sankara dad got together quite quick as well. So when things didn't work out, I acknowledged that it was because of my trauma, because of how quickly we got together and how everything happened. So when we're talking to the in-laws and they're trying to help you figure things out, I'm quite open and honest. So I'm like, listen, maybe we're not compatible. We got together quite quickly, and this is my reason for why I jumped into this. I don't usually do this really quickly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, when you have to explain your madness,
Yeah. Trying to justify.
you're coming back to your mindset. Now you're like, okay, I was glitching. Let me explain how that glitch was happening. So yeah, and that's when they kind of started to know more and understand me more as well, and understand certain reactions, because I know that when Sankara was born, perhaps maybe I was too worried about things that was happening. Like when he got colic, I'd panic and whatnot, and that would cause some strain in the relationship. But again, it's kind of like just having to remind the dad, like, actually, this is first time you're being a parent, but this is not the first time for me. Do you know what I mean? So my anxiety is looking very different to yours, and stuff like that. So yeah, he pretty much knew everything, and eventually the in-laws got to understand and got to know.
Okay, cool. And what about your son?
Oh no, he doesn't know. Wouldn't even know how to explain that to him. Not yet, anyway. I'm definitely gonna tell him. I'm definitely gonna tell him that he has siblings, angel siblings and whatnot. And funny enough, in a way, I'm always kind of hoping that he interacts with them. Sometimes when he's talking to himself, it kind of scares me, creeps me out.
Yeah.
Who are you talking to?
You never know. You never know. Again, I'm a spiritual person, so I believe in things like that. You never
No,
know.
same here. I'm a spiritual person. Like, one of my madness, part of my going crazy is that I was talking
superpowers.
to mediums.
Can we change madness to superpower, please?
Superpower. Okay, what about superpower? But I just have to make it clear. I'm actually very like pro madness. I just have to say, when I say madness, I don't demonize it. I always say everybody's mad. You just gotta find someone who's mad like you. That's so I'm like, oh, okay, so we're having a crazy day today, no problem. But one of my superpowers, I would say, is that I was very much, because I was looking for a lot of comforting and reassurance. I spoke to mediums, I spoke to psychics, like, are they okay? Where they've gone back in spirit? Have I let them down? Because I was really guilt driven. Like, are they mad at me? Did I fail them? I was looking for answers like that. And so I did get a lot of answers. I would like to believe it's true. I think one woman in particular was like, and she was like, you've had them before in your past life. And also, you'll have a child soon. Actually, I remember her telling me that. I was like,
wow.
really? She was like, yeah, you'll have a child soon. And that child, you'll notice that when they get to like maybe toddler stages, that they're interacting with things you can't see. They'll be interacting with their siblings and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, are you sure I'm going to have a child? Like, yeah, you will. She's like, I'm feeling you're going to have a son. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Okay. So in a way, I pretty much had an idea that Sankara was going to come, and stuff that happens now, I kind of connect it to that as well. So yeah, so it's quite interesting. There's so much that I was going to tell you personally. Like, I can send you a voice note after. But yeah, okay. But yeah, there's a lot that's there that sometimes I feel like he knows already, but we haven't had the conversation yet.
Yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? I've got oldest children, so they know already, obviously. So
Yeah.
I never had to do that with my son. I mean, he's only 3 now anyway, so his understanding isn't fully there yet, but his sister will tell him,
Mm.
you've got an older brother called Zion. So I never had to have those conversations, but I will sometimes will say little things to him, or like when it, like you say, when he suddenly just starts looking up in random places and making noises and stuff like he's talking to
Yeah.
somebody else when
Yeah.
he was a little baby. Anyway, I said, oh, I'd ask, are you talking to your brother?
Yeah. 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 It's quite comforting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I'm a spiritual person. I lost my dad when I was 6, so I've
Oh.
always been like that. My son's buried with my dad and things like that. So
Oh.
yeah, it's that for me. I find comfort. And other people don't always find those things comforting.
Yeah.
Find them
I
quite
think I
scary.
think losing people really does make you more spiritual, because I know I mentioned earlier there's a reason why the date was significant to me, the 2nd of February when I came out of the hospital, is because that's the date that I ended up losing my dad
Oh,
as well. Yeah, so it was but that date has popped up 3 times in my family, because it's one of the dates that my cousin was born on, and it was the same hospital that my dad died at. So that date has got like a lot of overlapping events to it. And I know that my dad was very devastated after I lost twins, and my dad was very supportive. Because in our culture, it's kind of a weird thing. I don't think he was really equipped as an African dad to speak to your daughter about her losing her kids. Like, how do you have those conversations? But my dad challenged a lot of things. Like, he overcame a lot of things, including like the old mentality he had. And he would speak to me. He's like, "Mama, you'll be fine." He always just call me Mama because I'm named after his mum-ish. Like
okay.
I've got his mum's tribal name. He's like, "Mama, you'll be fine. Let me know." He'll call me every day, say, "I'm here. I'm your best friend. Call me if you need anything. If you need to cry." So when he passed me on that date, I was like, "Oh, why does this date has to be so significant as well?" But I was like, you know what? Maybe he's going to be with them.
Mm,
You know,
looking after
another
them.
guardian angel. So yeah, I'm very very spiritual as well. Like, I believe in stuff like that.
Yeah, it's not goodbye. It's see you later. That's what.
Yeah, yeah. It literally is a see you later. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and so that's. I mean, it's very. Your story is really inspirational. There's really nice moments in there, like as bizarre as that will sound to say, but
That's the thing, isn't it? It's a
yeah,
beauty in catastrophe.
yeah. And I firmly believe that. I know that if anyone who's listening, who is, if it's not long happened, if they're in the depth of it right now, it won't feel like that. But
Yeah,
there really is, like, just a bit
yeah.
like you. I remember on my son's second birthday, or his first birthday. I think it was his first birthday. But I remember just being, because I'd already had obviously had my rainbow baby by then, because he was born within less than a year later. Um, and just being really, really sad, expecting to be happy because I've got my rainbow baby, but actually being really, really sad, and going to
Mm,
the cemetery and basically refusing to leave until I could find a positive. Because I was like,
mm.
I can't keep living like this. I want to be a happy mum for the rest of my children, sort of thing. So,
Yeah,
it just came to me. I was like, Zion gave me Marley, just like you said. Like, I wouldn't have had my rainbow baby
yeah.
if I hadn't have lost my son.
Mm,
So that was my gift. He gave me a gift. He gave me
mm,
Marley. That's how
mm.
I took the positive from that and was able then to go. And now I do this. I've got the podcast. So
Yeah,
I try and do bits where I can help other people where
yeah,
I can, because it's not something that you can really help much with in that situation, but to
yeah.
offer some kind of guidance. Like, so this, where you come in to talk to us today and sharing your story, it will help more people than you realize. Because even just me listening, like, I'm listening like, oh my God, there's so many similarities between us,
Mm.
what we've
Yeah,
been through. So if
yeah,
other people are listening to that, and they
yeah.
can that actually, and we've laughed, we've laughed about it and things like that.
Yeah,
See that.
they'll feel less alone, because it's a very isolating journey. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter how many people you've got physically around you. When you're going through it, it's so lonely.
Hmm.
It's so lonely. And so having podcasts like this where we do share these journeys, when you're feeling that lonely, to hear that actually other people have experienced this type of loneliness, it makes you feel united in a loneliness way.
Yeah.
Like, we're alone together. Even if this journey is alone, there's a lot of us that have gone through it, and it does give that sense of hope of like, you do get through that stage. You do come out of that zombie stage. It does get better. Life does get lighter. You don't forget them ever, but you get to live with the memory of them. you get to live with them in another dimension in a way, you
Yeah.
know.
You get to more, for me personally, I feel like as time's gone on, my love has grown and the pain is shrinking.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
yeah, the pain kind
Yeah,
of overtakes at the beginning, doesn't it? With
yeah. The pain is intense. Yeah,
yeah. It really is. But yeah, it is one of those things that when you're in it, you can't see the light. But there is, I hate saying it because I used to hate when people say to me at the time, like,
yeah,
everything happens for a reason. There's light in
yeah,
the tunnel.
yeah,
But
yeah,
as I always say, the grief remains the same, but our
yeah,
capacity to live with the grief becomes
yeah,
greater as time goes.
yeah. Yeah. And also I just want to say to anyone who's listening out there, any woman, because I know when we hear that everything happens for a reason, that used to get on my nerves because I used to feel like people are giving me reasons why it's happened. But
Mm,
what I realized is so important is that you get to find your reason, you make your reason, like everyone's reason is different. And it's through the journey, it's for going through it that actually you get to say, oh, okay, this is making sense, or okay, that's making sense. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, my reason is thank God that guy is not in my life ever. Whereas for other people, depending on circumstances, it's their husband. So that can't be a reason. Do you know what I mean?
mm.
It's more painful that way. And so everybody gets to find their reason. People may tell you that. They're not telling you that you deserve for it to happen to you or that they know the reason. They're telling you that you will find your reason and it's through your own journey in your own pace.
And you're 100% right in that. I mean, I used to be a strong advocate of that beforehand and say that you may not know what the reason is now, but at some point you will find it. And I did find it really, really difficult to hear it after losing my son. I've really found it difficult.
Yeah.
But now, 4 years down the line, almost 4 years down the line, I can, in a sense, see a
Yeah.
reason. Not a reason, but
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
like that day when I was at the cemetery, when I realized that Zion gave me Marley, I also have taken on board that there's a reason why I've had to experience so much trauma, and that is to be able to then be better equipped to support other people. Because I've always worked in support. I've worked in support for so many years, and I thought I'd been through a lot, and I was able to support people in situations. But actually,
Yeah.
now I look back and think, oh, actually, probably what I did there probably wasn't that helpful for them. But now
Mm.
because I've got
Yeah.
similar experiences, I can
Yeah.
see what is going to be helpful and what isn't going to be helpful.
Yeah. You could be more open to it. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I get to meet amazing people like you as well.
Oh, thank you, Louisa. Thank you. I'm so honored.
I'm honored, honestly, and thank you so much for coming along and telling your story today. If there is one thing that you can say for someone to take home today, what would that be? Or
In
you could
regards
tell
to,
your past self.
sorry, say that again.
So if there's something you would like someone to take home today, what would you tell them? Or something that you could tell your past self?
Oh, I'll definitely remind myself to take it one day at a time. I'll definitely, because it's so easy to get caught up in what's going to happen tomorrow, or you're either to be present basically, because you're either living in the past, as in what you could have done differently, or you're living forward as what could go wrong in the future. Like be present. Before you know it, you will be in the future, but you only get to the future by staying present. That's how it happened slowly. And I know that I also want to say is I just want to normalize how dark your thoughts could get. Like there's been a couple of points in my life where I felt suicidal, and that was one of the points. And I think that we don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about how when you lose people, you want to join them, and how normal it is to have those sensations and those feelings. Understand that they're going to be there for you when it's your time. And I think normalizing that as well. I think one of the greatest thing about grief for me, after grieving my twins and my dad, is that I no longer fear death like I used to, because I almost know that when my time comes, I'll be received with a lot of love on the
Mhm.
other side, because I've got people waiting for me on the other side. And so anyone that's experiencing like really deep dark thoughts, try and stay in the present, because that comes, death is inevitable, we all go there, but now you've actually got people who are waiting for you with open arms. And so enjoy the people that are still here with you, and when the time comes you will go. But however, normalize the fact that you may crave them to that extent, and yeah, seek comfort and support, but know that it's normal to feel that extreme level of sadness.
Yeah, and don't feel don't feel scared to voice it either.
Yeah.
Speak to people, let them know how you're feeling. They
Yeah.
will understand, and they will
Yeah.
like it's no one's going to look at you like that you've got two heads, because we've
People are a lot more understanding than we give them credit for.
yeah, and most of the time we've all been there, but we don't
Yeah.
always talk about it. So you don't know that.
Yeah.
Like after losing my son, I mean, I had 3 miscarriages in between my daughters as well, but because we never really spoke about it to people, it's only after losing my son, because like it was a different loss, and in the sense that I gave birth to him and we had a funeral and everything else. People knew about him. I've got a picture of him, for example. I didn't have a picture of my miscarriages, but I didn't realize how many people I knew who had experienced something similar until then. It was only once that happened and they started to talk to me about it, then
Yeah.
I realized that,
Yeah.
wow. And now, again, because I talk about it, I still get other people come and talk to me or reach out to me. So it actually happens a lot more than we realize. And people experience these things a lot more than we realize, unfortunately. So yeah, don't be afraid to talk and just tell people. And even if they do think you're crazy, who cares?
Yeah. Crazy is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good to lose your mind because you get to experience life from another dimension and come back. And also then you get to understand when people are going through it because you're like, oh, I've got you. You then get to reassure other people that actually it's okay for you to be quite absent mentally. You go away, but come back. Just come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. And that's it. And you can come back. Like that
Yeah.
is really important to remind
Yeah.
people that you can come back.
You
I
can
mean, I'm
come back and you do
mental
come
health.
back.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And there's so many of us that suffer with mental health as well, again, that we don't talk about. I
Yeah.
have PTSD and anxiety after losing my son. Like, yeah, I again, someone who's worked in support for so many years. I've been trained on so many different things. And when it was happening, I didn't even know what was happening. And I'm trained on these things. And I
Yeah.
didn't even
Yeah.
realize what was going on. I remember joking, like, oh, yeah, I think I've got PTSD. And it turns out I actually do have PTSD. Like, yeah. And like, I don't know, I am crazy sometimes. Like right
Yeah.
now, I'm having to take myself away for a few days by myself just to reset, recharge, so I can go back and be a better mum and a better
Yeah.
wife, a better friend, and all of those things. Because if I didn't do that,
Yeah.
then people would definitely call me crazy.
Then you be another definition of crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So no, it is really good to know these things and to take time, and and like you said earlier, I like what you said about telling people about your experience, because you wanted them to understand you and your behavior,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because I often do that. I mean, I walk around a supermarket and sometimes when I'm having a bad day and I think, God, what do people think of me? Because
Yeah.
they don't know my past. They don't know. If they knew my past, they'd be like, oh, I was okay, I
Yeah,
understand.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But either way, I think it's great to tell people, and hopefully you can feel confident to tell people. I will never now, if somebody asks me, for example, how many kids have you got and stuff, I will never leave out my son. And it makes it awkward for them. I don't care anymore. I used to feel bad when I have to
Yeah.
explain, oh, I've got 3 at home with me, but you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care about making people feel awkward anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, it is what it
Yeah.
is.
But to be honest, some people, as a society, we need to be more uncomfortable because I realize that when something happens that needs to be discussed, we get into but actually we need to go through that so that we can get through the other side. And I think that's the part of me that people really liked on Big Brother is that I was able to what I'm gonna have this conversation because we need to get to the other side and we can't get there without going over this awkward bridge. And as society, we need to have those conversations. Like, this is my pain. What are you feeling uncomfortable about? Maybe there's something about you that you need to work on as well. And also, the more we have these uncomfortable situations and conversations, the more other people realize that there's parts of them that need working on as well.
Yeah, yeah. And you realize yourself as well by having these conversations. For
Yeah.
me, that was one of the, if you can never get a gift from grief, but that is one of the gifts from grief for me, was learning about myself. When you experience trauma is when you learn the most about yourself, and finding myself again in a way.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it is. And my friend told me recently, actually, which has stuck with me, get used to making people feel uncomfortable, or get used to disappointing people, not
Yeah.
always doing what they
Yeah.
expect of you.
Yeah.
To get used to that feeling, that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
that's how we break the
Absolutely.
rules.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for today, and thank you for your powerful words as well. Honestly, it's gonna touch so many people.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I've really enjoyed talking today, so thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, Louisa. Thank you.